was I thinking it was Tuesday all day? I have no idea. I ought to be behind the times, never mind in front of the times. So anyway, Monday it is, and it's our catch up in the Platinum group for our temperature hexagons. Oh, let me get rid of my keypad. I don't need my keypad. Let's put it under there. Yes, so welcome. I am not expecting huge amounts of people to join me, and that's okay. You can all watch back later and decide whether you're going to make a hexagon too. I've got something special for you tonight. I haven't even tried to see if it's going to work. I suspect it will, but we'll give it a go. Something a little bit different, because I've realised that you actually tend to do the same as me. You get inspired by what I do. Notice the huge amounts of work sitting behind you. In fact, both pieces. Heating on, the cuppa in hand. I wonder if that's on Nick, because she's like me. She feels the cold. I'm cold all the time, even when it's not so cold. I'm cold. Let me just get onto my Platinum group. Here we go. Oh, even when right, it's not so shut up. Do shut up. Yes, Nicola, I knew it was. So let's have a look. Excuse me, I'm going to start coughing again, aren't I? Hello to Helen and to Sue. Hope you're feeling better, Sue. Let me know how you're getting on. Janet, Gemma, Nicola, Kath. Oh, I should imagine you're really tired, Kath. Elaine and Joyce and Jackie and Christine and Jill. Welcome to you all. Gosh, there's 25. I don't expect many more than that, because it's something, a little bit out of the ordinary. I had to postpone last night, and I know you understand. There's no point even saying I'm sure you understand, because I know you will understand. After having 3 very, very busy days doing stitching, wrong one, that one. The upshot, the good side of it all, is that I've got tons of scrappage left over from this kit. I could probably make another one. No, I'm not going to, but I could. And it's still got all the papers in the back, and we're going to be doing foundation paper piecing tonight. We're going to be tackling it in the members group, as you well know, because we're going to do one of these. I might do the ones with the pips, because I rather love them. So we will be making an apple, not this week, next week, in the main group. But as I've spent the entire weekend and Friday doing foundation paper piecing along with our lovely Kath and Sue and Abby, I thought we should just extend that bit of knowledge to this evening. Now then, it just so happens, yesterday of course, I'm picking Sundays as my day to do my temperature hexagon, because, oh, I got full title. Who's that from? Evening Lizzy Curtis I've got here. Who's that from? Oh, it's from Louise. Good evening, Louise Evans. How are you? Well, it's better than, when you get called by your full name. Elizabeth Curtis. What? Who, me? Who, me? When I was an army wife a gazillion years ago, I was known of, and if you're an army wife, you're in some point in your life, then you'll know that when I was expecting the girls, it was always wife of 564. Wife of 564, your time is... Wife of 564, and no way will I ever answer to that. So I just, until they actually said my name, and then, oh yes, that's me. Wife of 564, that's never left me, you can tell, and we're going back over 40 years. Lovely. Oh dear me. So anyway, there we go. Let's have a quick look. See, gosh, I've got 40 people watching. I'm inspired for some FPP, says Nicola. Yeah, good evening, Debbie. And Eileen, and our other Jackie and Cheryl, and Bridget and Rachel and Sue, and obviously our Louise Evans, and Margaret, and you'll always be that now, Louise, you know that, Louise Evans. It's a bit like Gemma Joy. Gemma Joy is always Gemma Joy, hardly ever Gemma. It's just the way it is. It's just like Carol Wheat, it's always Carol Wheat. I don't know where that started. I know Abigail started, but I don't know. She might, maybe she misread it at some point and decided, okay, we might as well just go with it, run with it. I'm surprised Carol's parcels don't turn up with Carol Wheat on the front. Anyway, we must get on because obviously we've got stuff to do. So anyway, you're not quite right, says Jackie, not a number. How rude is that? Why 564? I should never forget it. Anyway, temperature hexagons. You know I chose Sunday as my hexagon, and I'm not deviating from that. And even though I was tucked up in a classroom most of yesterday, I have to say when I left the house at it was about 8:30 time in the morning, it was already 19 degrees. It was actually really warm. Temperature hexagons are all about the temperature of the day and how you find it where you are. It's not necessarily about clouds or rain or anything specific. It's about the temperature and how you would represent that in design, let's say, or in colours of your fabric. So I thought earlier on, how else, because obviously we've had some really warm days. It's just been one of those years, hasn't it? We've had warm days. We've had one day where it was pretty grotty, and we can go through my hexagons again. But actually we've been very lucky with the temperature, and I suppose if we did this again in January, we're not, but if we were to do it again in January, they'd all be greys and blues, and which represents the temperature of being cold, you know, whites and icy colours and shivering and all that sort of thing. But yesterday when I left home it was 19 degrees, which was really quite a surprise. We were in an air-conditioned room all day, so really apart from that early start to the day, and when I came out at 3 o'clock, I had an early finish, it was still really warm. It was 22, 23 degrees. It was really warm and cosy. And I thought, how else can you represent that other than yellows and tones of orange maybe? The blue sky, yes, that is a specific, but if you've got blue sky, it's going to be warm, isn't it? It's how you makes you feel. You could say it's a rosy feeling, couldn't you? So you might even bring in pinks. That would be interesting. So it's your interpretation of the temperature of that day. And it's actually quite difficult to be really specific with that. And when I've seen quilts done like this 365 days, because that's how it's supposed to be, and then you get the whole year of the highs and lows of the temperatures, if you were to select let's say a 2-month period, they would probably be very, very similar, little bit of deviation here and there, as our weather is, as I have got here. So so by choosing, it should be over 7 weeks, but obviously we've had hiccups along the way one way or another, then you're going to get, they're going to be quite similar, so bear that in mind. So that's why I decided to do more technique-y things. So when we look at the overhead, let's do that. These are let's get rid of the other mouse. These are the ones that we've done so far, or I've done so far. So that's my first one, that's my second one, and this was the really sort of cloudy day. Let's put it so it's like that. That was the really cloudy day. Then we had the hot sunshiny day, which I could probably do like that. Then we had the day where it was hot sunshine, but we had a cloudy start, and we ended up with a sort of cold, in other words, a sort of more cold feeling to the day. And then we had this sort of let me just turn it so it's like that. I know it sounds a bit silly, but then we ended the day with it being really cool. Excuse me. Excuse me. So sorry, that just suddenly happened. Where the temperatures dipped sort of tea time and into the evening, and then we had a lovely evening. And this was, I think it was in this last week, and I was inspired by the textile exhibition I went to, and it was just a lovely sunny day, and we had the sort of the warm temperatures, if you like, and that's what the yellow. I'm going to sneeze again. And so, so the French knots represent the sort of dappled sunshine and warmth of the day. Oh dear me, I've got a runny nose now. It's typical, so I don't have a tissue handy. Might have to text John, come and get me a tissue. Anyway, So we've got this one to do tonight. Don't worry about these not quite meeting. They will meet, obviously, because we're using the same pattern. And then the last one will be next week. So it'll be interesting to see what... And actually, funny enough, Sunday is forecast to be about 23 degrees here. So the whole thing is going to be different. The only thing that has changed, obviously, is the other techniques. Because each week I've chosen a different technique, which wasn't my intention, really. But that's how it's ended up being. And then we're going to hand stitch them together, or we could zigzag them together and make them into a really nice little, it could be like a little mat, or you know, something that you can have in your craft room, sort of pinned up somewhere, just to remind you of the process that you went through. So although I haven't seen many of these made, it's something that you can revisit, even if it's during the winter or next spring or next summer. It's something that you can obviously revisit. So it's a good little exercise to do. Okay, let's move on. So this is our hexagon. This is the one that I've used the entire time. And when I'm sorry if I'm sniffing. I'm going to have to get a tissue from somewhere. So I kind of drew these out earlier, and I thought I want to do foundation paper piecing. And I'm certainly not going to stitch on copy paper. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to say to you all, that I'm absolutely not going to stitch on copy paper, and I'll show you what I'm going to stitch on in a sec. So all I did was I took my hexagon. In fact, let's just make it easy for ourselves and tuck it in the corner. Let me just make sure you can see it, and just draw around the hexagon. Let me just send John a message, because otherwise I'm going to sniff, and that's not very nice. He probably won't see it. Let me just send this to him. See what happens. I think he's watching football. So all I've done is draw around the hexagon. Now you can do this yourself, and you can make your own design up. But doing foundation paper piecing, there has to be some sort of system. So excuse me. So as long as you've got the straight lines, he hasn't seen it. I might have to run off and get a tissue, guys. Looking around my room thinking, there must be a tissue in this room. Just a sec. Thank you, John. My nose was absolutely running.
Really. Saying, are you paying cash, or have I got to invoice it to you?
Well, the ladies, they know that I've had to run down and get a tissue, so.
Oh, I got your text. You didn't have to pay.
Oh, I didn't see you read it. Sorry. Got my tissues now, guys. We'll be okay. We just okay. It's not very pleasant, but I'm sorry about that. That's better. I should be okay. Right. Okay. So that. Let's go back to the live. Oh, sorry. There we go. Better now. Yes. So with foundation paper piecing, you just have to remember that you don't want any wire seams for a start. So what you could do is something really simple, and you could just join lines up like this. It could be as simple as that, okay? And then what you would do is you'd cut this out, the centre, you join that to that, that to that, that to that, and you would have a hexagon, okay? Which sounds really simple, and it is, as long as you don't overthink it too much. That's the problem with things like foundation paper piecing. It just makes you think that it's got to be complicated, and it doesn't have to be complicated. So you could use this as your pattern pieces if you want to. We'll talk about this more when I do the live in the group. I'm not very good tonight, am I? Sorry about this, guys. But what is ideal is foundation paper piecing paper. And I in the pattern for Autumn Apple, I do give you a link. This is crazy. I'm so sorry. and you would be stitching on this type of paper. Okay, so let's just cut a piece out, because we obviously don't want a great big piece, but we'll have a big enough piece to actually do this on. Right, so let me just message John again. He'll think I'm an idiot. So I'm cutting out, and this is what I would call a section. Okay, so this is something that you would use to stitch on. So again, all we're going to do is trace around our hexagon, because the one thing I want to make sure we don't do is to actually stitch over the sides of the hexagon, because it's going to make bulk, and because we've got fabric, layers of fabric, all of our things have got layers of fabric, we don't really want to have that bulk in our seams in the fold over. So all I've done here is sort of just gone around the hexagon like that, okay? And then from there I want to make a design. Well, I'd already done these two earlier, and that is too scruffy for me. That doesn't have any structure. I don't like that at all. But I do like this. I think this looks really nice, and that could easily be the rays of the sunshine giving you the warmth of the day. And then obviously a bit of blue sky, so we could have these. Thank you, John.
You've drank all the whiskey, all the vodka, all the gin, but there's a little drop of sherry left somewhere.
Thank you. I've got lots of sherry. I've got a lovely bottle of sherry from Sue. Excuse me, guys. Right. So I think to get, yeah, it's like the facets of a diamond. Yes, it is. And what a diamond sort of day it was, for all sorts of reasons. So to make this feel really warm, I think I could put blue in here, blue in here, blue, blue, blue and blue, and then perhaps 4 different colours of yellow, or yellow, orangey colour and yellow, and that would give me what I think to be a good representation of the day, with blue skies and yellow sunshine, overall giving me a really warm look. That's what I'm after. It's the temperature. How would you say, how would you interpret otherwise the temperature of a day? I think you have to go with the correct colours. So I'm not putting an actual picture of a sun. I'm not doing that. I'm not making something specific necessarily. Okay, so from there we need to put those lines onto my stitching piece. This stitching piece is the foundation paper. Yes, the foundation paper. Okay, and like I said, it's actually, the link is in the pattern of Autumn Apple. And it's a very good quality. It's perfect because you can see through it, and you're going to get good results. You're going to get good results. Now, what I've done so far, you can see, is I've gone from that point to that point. I've done another seam from there to there. Now, I don't want to do any more stitching in there. In fact, if you look at my original one, I come out a bit. And actually, I think I might do that. Oh, 2 seams there isn't too bad, but I think I would be better off just coming out a bit. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to ignore that. So, I mean, I could put my iron, oh, no iron. I could put my iron on that to take it away, because I'm using a heat erasable pen, okay? So, then we're going to add our lines, and we're going to make it look like kind of sun rays, but you don't want anything that's too contrived, and we're going to use this as our stitching. And like I said, I will cover this in more detail when we do the work in the main group. Okay, this is just for our temperature hexagons. So there's our sort of sun ray look. But then I want to get my blue sky in, so I'm going to put my blue sky here I ought to do this with a ruler really, just in case. And here, and these are tiny pieces, okay? Should still be fine, but you've got to remember that you've really got to trim your seam allowances down, like to 1/8 of an inch or even smaller. 1/8 of an inch is probably, I would say, perhaps just leave it at 1/8 of an inch. Any smaller, I think you might get a little bit confuddled with it. And if you remember, we decided that this was going to be blue, yellow, orange, orange, yellow, blue, and then blue in these bits here. Okay. Now, what you could do is I could take this one. I'm not going to do this, guys, but you could take this one that we've done on copy paper. It's just, and this is exactly the same as what you've got in your autumn apple pattern, but quite honestly, that's just a bonus, to be honest. You should be able to do this with little scraps. And you could cut these pieces up. So let's just cut these up like this. Okay. I'm not suggesting for a minute you do this. I'm just going to ask you to use chunks of fabric. Okay, and then you cut these little bits here. Okay, I'm not going to do them all. So you would cut all your pieces into pattern pieces, basically. And each one of these would be a pattern piece that you would cut your fabric from. So you'd cut all these bits as well. And you will add, well, I'm going to say at least 1/2 inch, but a good 3/8 to 1/2 inch all the way around this to give you a seam allowance. And what you're doing is providing yourself with a cutting allowance, if you like, big enough so you can place it on your fabric and be able to stitch. Now, if you've got patterned fabric or fabric that only has like one good side to it, it's right side up with the right side of the fabric. So if you've written on it like I have, that's easy because you're putting the right side facing, which is buffer blue, onto the right side of the fabric. Okay, and then what we'll do is, in fact this is it would be a mirror image, we would then transfer that onto the pattern with our fabrics. However, because they're such small pieces, we're just going to go for it. So I need some blues, so I'm just going to, I've got my lovely stash of blues again, so I'm just going to cut, in fact I might just do all plain so it doesn't complicate it for me. And I'm just going to cut loads of pieces of blues, again trying to represent the sort of day and how it felt to me, you know, temperature wise, that sort of thing. So I've got lots of, you know, and you could have different colours, you don't have to have them all, that's the same, isn't it? So let's have a look, what else have I got. Some of these are pretty grotty, but let's just let's just use them anyway. I quite like that lovely blue there, real turquoisey blue. I mean, I can rip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's get another piece. Let's have a look. This maybe. So you don't need huge bits. Oh, that's the same as that. Hold on. Let me just. This is where all our scraps from Barney comes in handy. Oh, there we are. And then we just need some yellows. So, gosh, these scrap bags that I did, I only did the greens, the yellows and the blue, well, some of the blues, and yet they've lasted me ages, haven't they? And then I've got these gorgeous yellows. So I'm going to do slightly bigger pieces because I've got a bigger piece to cover. So let's see how we get on with different shades. I'm going to struggle, I think, but we'll give it a go. And this is where I could have done with my iron. So yellow. I've been so busy. I've been so busy. Oh my gosh. So busy. I know you know I've been busy. I won't go on about it. So that's that one. Now then, that's the same yellow as that. What about this bit? Yeah, I think we're okay with that bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we are. That'll do lovely. Super job. Now then, because we've got these strips here with 2 sections to it. So these sections you can just cut as they are. Yeah. These sections are going to be all separate, and we're going to add on that bit to that bit, then that bit to that bit, then that bit to that bit, then that bit to that bit, and then we're going to join them all together. Okay, so we have to join these on first. So all I'm going to do is, in fact, I could, I'm just thinking how I'm going to do it. I could have these as separate pieces and then I'll stitch on that. Good plan. I'm just thinking on my feet, guys. So let me just trace this off. Let me, I really want that. I don't want to use copy paper. I've got a thing about using proper foundation paper, piecing paper. I'm going to make myself another template, a section, let's say. So this is our main pattern. Then I'm going to replicate what I've got. So with the pattern you would literally replicate it to the letter, okay? It has to be pretty accurate. So I'm just going like this, and it should end up thereabouts, if not better. So let's do that, and then I think the last one goes like that. Let's have a look. Let me get it so it's right side to me. There we go. So that one is there to there. That's it. Okay, so it's blue, yellow, orange, orange, yellow, blue, and then let's mark these like that, and then I'm going to cut these up into sections. Okay, so don't panic. All you've got to do is think, what did she do? Okay, I'll watch it back. That's the best thing to do. Always watch it back. So let's cut these out, because you can't join these. They have to be done separately because you can't join them on the same piece. So we'll cut this one out, we'll cut that one out, this one, and this one, and the other ones I cut out before, which are these, they would be your pattern pieces. So you would use let's get one that's not going to confuse you. So this one you would just use as your pattern piece, and I'll show you what I mean in a sec. Okay, so these are our pieces. Okay, so for instance, this is going to be a blue, so I could pick up my blue, and I could, if I wanted to, just use this as my pattern piece. In fact, I would leave it like that. So I know that that piece of fabric is big enough to go onto my design. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make up these sections here. So let's just keep things tidy. So that one I've got, I can just leave as is. Okay, and because we've got it, let me get it so it's that way, we're going to work mirror image. And then I've got another blue here, so I know that that's correct. Just make sure I've got the right piece, the right colour. So again, that's a bit small, so we'll use this bit. So I'm just using that as my guide. And then I need a little piece for these ends here, so I'll use that one, that one, that one, and that one. So I've got 4 little blue bits for the ends. Okay, and then I need 4 yellow pieces. So I'm going to again give myself plenty of space. So that one, let's just So you can see I've got, and don't ever think that there's waste, because there is no waste really with foundation paper piecing, because you can always use the spare fabric pieces on other projects. And I've got a whole bag of that sitting just not too far away from me. Okay, so those are all my pattern pieces there. So let's just get that all in order. Okay, and I'm going to stitch onto this piece of paper here. So the first thing I need to do is to actually, I'm trying to think laterally here. I'm going to be stitching these together. So I'm going to be stitching these. Honestly, I can't quite think straight. So let's just get the machine in. Let me just put you on side camera and remove my water. And see if I can remember how to use this machine. Oh, now the machine's stuck on top of it. That's it. Oh my goodness. Right. Okay. Let me just zoom out a little bit, so I can't move my machine anymore. That's it. Okay, so each one of these needs to be stitched on. So, for instance, let's put the yellow on first of this little section here. So that would be my number 1 fabric, so I'll have that like that. And I can fold this little bit back along the line. Let's move it up a little bit. So you can see that that bit fits that beautifully. And I'm just going to trim that back like that. So there's my first little yellow piece there. And then I'm going to get my blue and I'm going to pop that underneath. Let's do it right side down. Oh gosh. Let's do that bit again, shall we? Start again. Let's try and make this work for you. So yes, right side down. And then this one is right side up. I just want to make sure I cover this little tiny bit of blue there. So if I pop that on there like that, I know that I'm going to cover that blue. It needs to go to a slight angle, so I'll do it like that. Okay, so let's just pop that together. Okay, let's see if I can get that in the middle. And then we need to have a little look at what we've done, trim it like that. Okay, and then when we fold it all back, we've got a piece that looks like this, but we also want to put a seam allowance on it. So it needs to be just finger pressed or ironed, and then I need to give it a little seam allowance all the way around. So we need to do that with all of the pieces. Okay, I think I'll have to get my iron because they all need a press. So if we pick up the next one, so the next one is exactly the same. So we're going to put right side down, we're going to put the pattern right side up so we can read it. We're going to fold that little piece back. Let me just do that. It doesn't really matter where I do it. And then, okay, we're going to trim that to size so it follows the line of the paper. And then we get our next bit of blue, which is here. We just want to make sure that that blue is right side facing to the other one, so it's right sides together. And when we look at that little pattern piece there, we want to make sure that that blue behind it covers it, and it does. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. Just move that up a fraction. And then I'm going to fold this back and I'm going to stitch along that line that we drew. Okay, so when I've done these, I'll show you on the overhead what that looks like. Okay, so don't forget, for each one of these they need a seam allowance. Okay, so there's my the line that I've drawn, and when I pull back my fabric, give it a finger press, I've got that lovely angled piece. And once we cut that back, once we trim it and we've given it a tiny little 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, you'll see how that's working. Okay, decrease your stitch length. Well, it's only a demonstration, but yes, you would. You put it on about 1.5, but just for me tonight, it doesn't matter, and you don't need to notice that. So again, with the other piece of fabric, let me just cut that. The next piece of yellow, it's right side down. It's the right side of the pattern showing. It's making sure that all of it fits onto the wrong side of your fabric. And then you're going to fold along the line. Okay. It's very difficult doing this in mid-air. Sorry guys, I'll get it there in a sec. So I've folded along the line of the paper pattern where I've drawn the line. I'm going to trim it. Just put the heat of my hand on there. I know where my iron is, so I'm going to get it because this is not good working with creased fabric. So I've trimmed it back to the line of my fold, and then I'm going to put the blue underneath. And I've just got to make sure that when I put the blue on there, that it covers the pattern piece, so the little triangle. So if we look at it like that, there's the little triangle, and underneath is the blue, and that blue easily covers the size of that little triangle. Then I'm going to open my piece of paper up and I'm going to stitch it. Now what I'll do is I'll get my iron and I'll show you what I've done overhead, because I think that will make a lot more sense than me trying to show you mid-air. And then and all of these need to be trimmed, which we'll do in a sec, but when you look at the front, you'll see that we have actually got a little triangle piece underneath there. So we've got the angle that we need for our sunray, and we'll see that in better detail when I'm done. And then the last one, same process again. So it's right side down, right side of your pattern facing you. Then you're going to fold back on the fold line. So I have to do this on my sewing machine. Okay, so I've folded back the stitching line that I'm going to do, and I'm going to trim my fabric. So it's about 1/8 of an inch, only because this is a tiny piece. Any other times you might use 1/4 inch, but 1/8 of an inch is really good. And then underneath that I'm going to put the blue. Don't worry about bias, and as long as that blue covers that little triangle, which you can see it easily does, then you know you're going to have enough fabric for your piece. So let's just pop that under the machine. So you'll have bits that are really funny angles, and you mustn't worry about it. You kind of have to go with the flow with foundation paper piecing. Okay. Right, so there's our last little bit there. And don't forget, we're working in a mirror image, so whatever I drew, we're going to see the opposite of it. Okay, so that's that. So let me just quickly go and get my iron, because I know exactly where it is. And then we'll have a quick look on the overhead so you can see what this looks like. So although we've kind of drawn this from scratch, I've talked you through each part, and I will talk to you about that again in a second. So let's switch the iron on and put you on the overhead. All I can see now on my screen is decrease your stitch length. Oh, that's Sue Crowder. Right, so I just need my ironing mat. Here we go. Yeah, so when I teach this in the group, you'll get the full Monty, as it were. Okay, so I'm just going to give these a little iron. I'm going to trim my pieces as well, and I'm going to show you what they look like. Oh, you know what I've done? I used heat erasable, didn't I? But I've got my lines already. Don't use heat erasable, guys. But I've got my pattern piece, so I'm okay. So each of these little pieces will make our sun rays. Okay, so if we look at the back of these now, each one of these has been stitched together. There's our pattern piece there. I'm going to give each one 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, so we'll cut that in a second. Flat. Okay, and then that's trimmed as well, so we're okay with that. So each one of those is our, as I say, I'll talk to you again about the process of this, just to make sure you're absolutely clear, because I was in a bit of a confuddle that's only because I've been rushing. So each one of these now need to be trimmed back. Now you can do this by either following your pattern piece, and I'll talk to you about that again in a sec, or you can do what I'm just doing and you're giving yourself a seam allowance. So let's just pop those together, and so I'm literally cutting around each one by 1/8 of an inch, so that's all the sides, and then we just got to work out, gosh, that's a tiny little triangle. We just got to work out then how they're put together. There we go. Because what the best thing to do would be to number them, and then you won't get lost. So let's just give that a seam allowance, and then up here. So hopefully I can get these all in the right order. There we go. I think this is going to look really nice. You might want to use your rotary cutter and mats if you're going to get a more sort of accurate cut. I must admit, I spent all the 3 days when I did this just using my scissors. I found that most acceptable. So there's my 4 pieces. Like I said, these are all mirror imaged. Now with these ones, all I need to do is add a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sorry, 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, because these are already the correct size. So I'm just going to hold it like this. Let me just iron it. You could put a little dab of glue on here just to hold it. So there's one. And then with this one, there we go. Cut round there. Let's give it try and keep to the 1/8 of an inch, because it might distort your hexagon if you do leave a bigger seam, or one side is bigger than the other. I think I'll leave that little point there. Okay, so there's my 5 pieces to make up my hexagon, and it's just a case now of stitching them all together. Well, I can get rid of those 2 because I don't need them they're not of any use to anybody. So it's just working out how these went, and they are the opposite way. So if I look at my little diagram here, that's the smallest blue, so I know that blue goes over here. When we stitch it together, it will make more sense. And then I'm going to start piecing them together. Let's keep it right size together for the time being. It might help me. And then it's just a case of popping them together. So, ugh, this could be an epic fail. So I think that's one. In fact, I think that one goes there. Possibly. Unless that one goes there. Oof. Ooh, perhaps it goes there, yeah. This one, I think that goes there. Guys, yeah, I should have numbered these, shouldn't I? I should have numbered them. That one must go there. So we're not going to end up with a straight bit, are we, if we're not careful? You know when you get that moment of helplessness, this is how I'm feeling. I should have, let's do it that way. Let's do it so this makes sense to me. That's that one. No, that's that one. That's that one. That's this one. Sorry guys, I've obviously had a brain freeze. You have to forgive me. It's no good anybody telling me how to do it, because I'm just now in a world of my own, trying to figure out the order in which these go. I don't know why that's so long, but I think we're about there, aren't we? I don't know why. Perhaps I didn't trim that one. I did. Right, I'm going to start off here and make sure this is a straight edge here, and then I'm going to come around the corner. So hopefully that's going to work. I should have numbered them, and then I wouldn't be getting into a muddle. Because when you get foundation paper piece, normally everything is in a... number 3 is orange, yeah, but don't forget we're working backwards. So this would perhaps be... And it's the... Do you see the angle? So... That's why I'm thinking that should go up to the top there, like that. But you see that angle isn't right here. So I think that's the right angle for that. That's the right angle for that. And that's the right angle for that. So I'm going to start off here and then see how I get on. So I'm going to attach this one to this one to this one. I reckon that one to that one, that one to that one. See how we get on, right? So let's have a look. Oh my word. If you can believe I've spent how many hours? Well, plus my autumn apple. That took me 2 weeks. So I'm taking my, I'm going to leave my paper in for the time being because that's my guide. So I'm just going to get these lined up. And don't forget our seam allowance is 1/8 of an inch, and I can trim this to size, so I'm happy about that. So I'm just laying this down, so right sides together, and then I'm just going to follow the edge of my pattern. It's funny using this machine again. I haven't used this machine for ages. So there's my first little piece put together. So don't forget, I'm going to trim all this, guys. That's my first little piece. So let's put the next piece on. And I'm going to line this up with the piece I've just done. And if you're not sure, I would always pin it and then fold it back just to see if it's lying in the right place. And if you don't think it's lying in the right place, just shift it a bit. because we're working with tiny, tiny seams, it doesn't give you much room. Let me just shift that. Gosh, it's really raining hard now. Have you had rain where you are? And I wouldn't use clips on this either. Pins are probably my safe bet with this. Clips are too heavy for most things, I'm finding these days. If you're doing multiple layers of patchwork and quilting, then clips are really good. So there is the first part. So if you think about a hexagon, let me just get my template. But you see, we've got that line, we've got that line. Obviously we're going to trim it, and then we're coming along the bottom here, so I'll probably have to trim that. So we need to come up here now. So let's get our piece and see what we think about coming up here. Look, so if I put that on, that has turned a corner. I don't know if you can see, but it's turned a corner here. I've got a point. So as long as I'm going to match up these bottom bits here rather than the tops. So let's get these put together. So it's been a good exercise for my brain. Not. I didn't really need to punish myself like this. Now, although I've kept the paper in, I've merely kept the paper in as a guideline. I'm going to show you the back of the one that we did at the weekend. So all of this paper will get ripped out. But I'm just using it as my guide at the minute, and to be honest, these could all come out now. And because if you've used a smaller stitch length, then they rip out really easily. So we've turned a corner with that one, which I'm very happy about. And then I'm going to stitch this one on, which takes me up the next. Do you see it's come down here? So we've gone like that, across there and up here. So we've got the right shape, guys, which is the most important thing. Having used the actual drawing as the template, we really can't go wrong, she says, full of confidence. And we have to trim it back anyway, because I've given it all a seam allowance all the way round. Oh, my bobbin's going to run out. That's okay. It'll last me enough to make this, I think. So there's my next piece. Do you see how that's angled? So by the time I put my hexagon template over the top, so this one being the outer edge, when I look at my pattern, so if I look at my pattern, that makes that bottom corner, there, because we're going opposite, we're going mirror image. I shouldn't worry about all this mirror image malarkey. I would just do what the pattern says. So let's stitch this one on. Oh, come on, little machine, you can do it. It's telling me I need more thread. That's okay, because I'm done now. Okay, so there is, I don't know if you can see, once we put our template on there and trim it, they're in there somewhere is a hexagon. Okay, so we can take these paper pieces out just so they don't get in our way. And be very careful when you're tearing paper out of a foundation paper piece. You don't want to start from an edge. You want to sort of kind of start from the middle, so you're not distorting your, you're not pulling your seams and pulling your stitches out. So just find an edge in the centre of your stitching, like here, and tear it, and then work along your seams, and get a pair of tweezers on them. And oh gosh, when I was doing the autumn apple, I was surrounded by bits of paper. Can't even tell you. Took a long time. Oh, it's a lovely piece of work though. I'm really pleased with it. So I've got all my papers out. If you remember, we didn't use the papers on the back, on the two ends at all. So I'm going to put my iron on and press that out. And in the meantime, I'm going to show you the piece that we made with Barushka. First of all, let me just pop that out the way for a sec. Let's put you on overhead. There we go. So first of all, I'll show you the back. So that's the back. Let me just, sorry. So it all needs a press. I haven't pressed anything yet. So I'm going to press all these seams open. And so it'll look a mess until it's all pressed out. So all of these seams are open. So you can see all the itty bitty pieces. And underneath these, so these sections are all little bits. So where you see lines and numbers and blocks of colour, they're all different pieces. And then when we turn it over, that's what we're looking at. So you can see now that it's literally, well, I don't know how many pieces, lots. And I haven't had a press yet. And I won't press it until I've taken the papers out, because the papers can distort it. So you can see all the little pieces that made up this design. Look at those tiny tiddly little birds there, and they're all little pieces of fabric. If you look on the back, you can see the lines where I stitched. Okay, so there we go. Let me put that down. So let's have a look at our hexagon. So I don't suggest for a minute that you press these seams out, but I am definitely going to go through with you again what you need to do. So you could just press them to one side, however easy it is for you, you need to press it out. Okay, but don't get a fold in your work, otherwise you'll be fed up. Be fed up. So just, there we go. I don't know how I got that funny distorted edge, but there we are. You live and learn. It's not like I'm an expert like Barushka. By golly, she's good. By golly. Okay, so I'm going to use my template, and I'm going to use that to cut. Okay, so let me get it pretty much in the position I want it to be in. And then we're going to cut it. Now I'm not putting a seam allowance on the edge of this, because if you remember all of the hexagons we've done, I'm going to cut off some of my blue, guys, but you know what? I know you'll forgive me for that. Yeah, on all of the hexagons we've done, I've never wanted the seams, the fabric, whatever we've done, the technique we've done, to go over the edge, because then that's what creates the bulk. So I would cut it. You could always zigzag the edges and make it neat that way. So there we go. So now I've created, hopefully I haven't moved that too much. Here we go. There we go. So that's created my temperature hexagon. So after all of that kerfuffle, we have created something quite gorgeous. You just hold that up so you can see it. I am actually very happy with how that turned out, considering I got myself in a muddle. So I'm going to do exactly the same as what I've done before. I'm going to cut out a hexagon from my calico, and I'm going to give myself enough seam allowance to tuck it under, and put my H640 on the back. You may or may not have done that, but that's up to you. That's up to you. So let's just trace around this. So from a kerfuffling start with a runny nose and a dry mouth, oh, I'm just going to cut this straight off. We've done okay, haven't we? We've done okay. But I'm just going to go through that first bit again, because I got myself in a muddle, and I would expect not to tell you guys the wrong way. So, right, okay, so there's my H640. There's my beautiful piece of calico. I love calico. I do. It's so useful for stuff. And then I'm just going to iron that on. To make sure that's well and truly stuck fast. And what we could do with this is that we could put some Bonder web on the back and we could glue that down, or I could just go around and stitch it. Well, I know that my machine is nearly out of thread, so how about if we Bonder web it? Let me go and find some. My whole room is in disarray. I blame Kath, because Kath was in here rummaging, you know. She wasn't. She wasn't. I'm telling stories. I'm telling porkies. We had a lovely time. We really had a lovely time. We didn't have much time for sort of, you know, gossip or, you know, chatting about random stuff. I did have to talk about kind of work stuff for a bit, but other than that, we were quite well behaved. We didn't really talk too much about work. Abigail did so well. She had to leave early on the Friday because she had to pick up Sebi, because you know the bus malarkey, and she was the first to finish out of 30 people. I know! Right, here we go. So let's iron that on. So it's glue side down. Let's just check, make sure you have got glue side down, and don't even try to lift this until it's cool. Just don't. Kath says, my fault. No, Kath, I'm teasing. We spent the whole 3 days teasing a chap called Pete. Pete_makes on Instagram. And he has done Barushka's Nefertiti. Worth a look, guys. Worth a look. So we'll just let that cool. So in the meantime, and I'm just going to glue it on my hexagon there. In the meantime, let me go through this again with you, because I want to make sure I've told you right. Because if I haven't, I should be mortified that I might have let you down. And I'm not going to use a heat erasable. That is so stupid. Right, so let's do another hexagon. Let's draw around it. Oops. You do not have to make this as complicated as mine. Just do 3 bits. So much easier. If you do 3 bits, you can stitch on your special tracing paper, your special foundation paper. So just put that up there so it cools. So let me just cut this out. Now I haven't put a seam allowance on this because each of those sections needs to have a seam allowance, and that's what I'm going to do for you. So let's draw this in again. I'm going to copy what I did. So don't forget, everything we draw on here ends up a mirror image, okay? Ends up a mirror image. So do you see, if I put my hexagon down next to it, do you see how these blue bits go to the right? Well, because we're working in mirror image, we get the blue bits going to the left, okay? But I'm not going to try and even attempt to change that. So let me get that straight, and this one straight. So there's our first bit. There's our second bit. Our third bit goes a bit like that. And it doesn't have to be this precise, girls and boys. It does not have to be this precise. So let's just, so we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. 1, 2, 3. So this one goes here. And this one goes here. Okay, so we then divide up into our blue. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, okay, so that is our pattern. Okay, and if you want to, you can number them and letter them. So B for blue, yellow, 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 B, 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 B. We also want the sequence of how we're going to stitch. So let's do it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Doesn't matter about these because we're going to join those onto there. Okay, so what you do then is to cut these up into pieces. Oh, that rain. So when I talk to you about pattern pieces, this is kind of like the same thing, except these are going to be the sections that you would stitch like I did on the paper. This is what this is for. But then you would also have a second set where you could cut each piece as a pattern. So I'm going to try and do this logically so it makes sense. So there's our 6 pieces, okay? So let's just pop that away. So the next thing you would do is get your here we go, your FPP paper, foundation paper, piece of paper, and all of these you would need to, you could use these as your pattern pieces actually. All of these you could add on. So for instance, I haven't got my glue stick here, but you could put 1/8 of an inch on all of these. Let's just assume all of these are going to have 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So let's just quickly do that. But what I would do is stick each one of these down with a little bit of EPP glue. So that's one, so we can call that B1. So our pattern piece is there, and then we've got our stitching piece there. So let's do that again. So this is another 1/8 of an inch with this one. Bear in mind that you'll use a proper ruler and measure it because your seam allowance should be right. I just need to show you what you're going to do. So each of these has 1/8 of an inch. So it increases the size of your hexagon, which is right. You want to draw your line in. So let's draw that in. So did you see what I did? I put my pencil against the line here and then created my stitch line. So this is yellow and number 2, and that's blue. So this will be number 3. So again, please you measure this, right? I mean, I'm always in a hurry. And you're going to give each piece 1/8 of an inch. Oop. Okay. I'm just putting where my line is going to be, which is there. This is yellow, number 3, and that's B. Put it back so we know where it should go. And you're going to continue with all of these pieces doing exactly the same, okay? And you'll cut these out, and these will be the pieces that you stitch on. And all you're going to stitch is the blue to the yellow along here. And then you're going to stitch this to this one, and this to this one, and you carry on until all of them are stitched. And I would treat this bottom edge as the edge that you want pretty much lined up. So you've got to think that you're making a hexagon. If you start piecing these at the top, you might go wrong. But if you go from the bottom, and all you've got to do is remembering your angles, you're not going to sit them absolutely dead on top of each other. You're going to stagger them a little bit. So for instance, these two to go together like that. But when you put them together, right sides together, you'll have an effect. Hold on, let me try and do it like that, where you've got a little dog ear. Can you see a little dog ear just there? And that's normal. If you think that's got to be 1/8 of an inch, and that's where you would start stitching, just in there. Okay. And then you'll seam allow, and then it'll all sit straight. When that folds back, that would be straight with that then. You'd end up with that. Okay, rather than a jaggedy piece. So just think about the positioning of your pieces. So that would just go like that. Okay, so that's where you'd stitch. Okay, so then what you can do is that you can use these as your pattern piece for your fabric. So for instance, if we got a piece of, well, let's get this big piece of batik that happens to be lurking. So then the pieces that you cut up can then be your pattern piece. So you can again, you can use your glue stick, and you can cut these a little bit bigger if you want to. You don't have to have them as a 1/8 of an inch. You could cut them, you know, quite a big size, or you can just use scraps. So if I pop that down, okay, and then you're going to use that as your first bit of stitching. It's going to be the other way around, but it's going to be like that, won't it? But that then gives you the pattern piece that you need. And don't forget, it's the right side of your pattern piece to the right side of your fabric. So it's not right sides together, it's the other way round. Okay, and that's the same pretty much for any foundation paper piecing. And when we do this properly in the group, you'll see much clearer and much better how that all works. So I should go through it at a very slow pace. And to be honest, I have given you the pattern pieces, so you don't even have to worry about that. I have absolutely done everything for you on that pattern, and it's going to be a really interesting workshop to follow. So there's our lovely now cold piece of FPP, and we're just going to rip it back. If any of you have made Raspberry Ripple, and if you don't include, let's say, the little triangles of blue, you could just go from one side of your hexagon to the other. Oh, paper sticks on you, doesn't it? So for instance, you know, if you don't use these blue bits on the end, you could just do strips like this, and you could do a bigger piece and then cut into it. And it's not really foundation paper piecing, it's just stitch and flip now, isn't it? So there is my piece. So don't forget, we're applying the heat from the front. We've just got to allow the heat of your iron to go through. So let's just give that a press. And that'll take a little while to go through all the layers, because don't forget you've got all those little seams under there. Okay. So now we have a beautiful hexagon that will fit in with all the others. I'm not going to stitch it because my machine says I haven't got any thread. And like I said, you could zigzag these so it's nice and neat. And all of these are going to get folded under. You can glue it if you want. Nobody's going to tell on you if you glue it. So I knew that was going to spring out. Well, you can see the gist, can't you? I could pin it. Let's have a look. Have I got my little pins handy? Oh, it's right in front of me. So let's just pin it, then you'll get the idea. I'm sorry I've gone over time. Didn't intend to. But that was really quite intense in a short period of time. Plus I hadn't practiced it. It does pay to practice these things. I'd never have got that away with that on TV days. But I know you guys forgive me everything. There we go. Just pin it so you can see. There we go. I am so loving doing these hexagons. So loving it. Because they're nice little things to do. And one thing today came out of when I asked that question in the main group about what projects you like or what fabrics you like, all that sort of thing, was that you said, most of you said you like little projects, which is interesting. So let's put this back on in the correct order. So like that, like that, like that. I love this. I'm so pleased I did that. Let's do it that way. And now we've got our warm day, and it was really lovely and warm. So then we've just got the centre one to do next week. So don't forget, I've created a new little weekly diary page, and just check that if you're not sure when I'm doing the next one. It's going to be Sunday, as long as nothing else happens in my life. And there we are. There we are. That's our next one done, which is lovely. Really pleased. I've got a gap now, look, in the wall. Yes, so there we are. So have a little go. I know that was a little bit rushed for such a complicated piece of work. But don't forget, if you think of Raspberry Ripple, that was really basic foundation paper piecing. Is draw your lines any which way, all going in the same way across your hexagon. You can do as many as you like. Put in 8, maybe in graduated colours. And then all you're doing is stitching along your lines, just like Raspberry Ripple. If you remember that, and I've seen lots of those made, so I know you can tackle that. And then you'll have a very similar effect. You don't have to do anything quite as complicated as I've done tonight. When we come to do the autumn apple in a couple of weeks in the main group, I'm going to take each piece really slowly so it all sinks in, hopefully. Right, thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. Sorry I was in a bit of a fuss to start off, but my nose was running, my throat was dry. I'd been rushing around, so apologies for that. So today is Monday. I'm live in my page, which is my page is my page. It's Lizzy Curtis. It's not a group, it's my page, Lizzy Curtis. So don't forget I'm there at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, demonstrating the chip family and the square in square, and I've got some plans for that. How you can use them together actually, which is quite interesting. Okay, so I will see you on Wednesday, if not before. Hopefully not for before, because I've got nothing planned. And have a lovely, lovely rest of your evening. Thank you very much for your company. Bye.